Well, I will sort of to provide a quick introduction to what we're about and how we're going to proceed over the course of the week. It strikes me that some of us may know a few of the people under the tent. Some of us may even know a lot of the people under the tent. I doubt that anybody knows everybody who's under the tent. So perhaps the first thing to do would be just simply to go around the tent and introduce ourselves at least once, so we hear everybody's voice and get some idea of who's here. So I'll begin. I'm Gary Yohe. I'm an economist at Wesleyan University.
I'm Klaus Keller. I'm a geoscientist. I work in climate change detection and decision making on uncertainty.
I'm Carl Wunsch, a physical oceanographer from MIT.
I'm Dick Kerr. I'm a reporter at Science Magazine.
My name is Hans Storch. I'm a director of the Institute for Coastal Research at a place close to Hamburg.
Peter Jen, I work at the National Center for Atmospheric Research.
I'm Susan Hassel. I'm a climate science writer, and I live here. The great good fortune of living right around here, and I worked at this institute for many years with John. More recently, I've written the Arctic Climate Impact Assessment Synthesis Report, and also the U.S. National Assessment of the Impacts of Climate Change, which is a writer on that. And I'm here for sort of an interesting reason. Besides my interest in abrupt climate change, I have some foundation funding to help do sort of PR work, publicity work for climate science findings. And so I'm sort of here scouting, looking for interesting new findings that may be about to be released so that I can help the authors to work with them and help them to publicize their findings. So anybody who wants to talk to me, I'll be happy to hear what you have to say.
Don't walk out right now.
Let's not skip Richard.
Yeah, I'm Richard Wood. I'm a climate modeller from the Hadley Centre, close to nowhere in particular in England.
It's a good place to be at the moment.
I'm David Sheffrin. I'm from the University of Illinois and I'm working in the interdisciplinary research group ACTIS on energy, climate change, and also conflict research.
I'm Jim Todd. I work in NOAA Climate Global Change Program. I'm the program manager there for a program called CLIVAR. And also I have some responsibility for some abrupt climate change funding that you'll hear about in the talk. So and I do a couple of more things in that office as well. But glad to be here.
I'm Julia Hargreaves, and I'm at the Frontier Research Centre for Global Change in Yokohama, Japan. And I'm a physicist, maybe.
You're single and an interested spouse.
Good. That's good.
I'm Orlando Garcia. I'm a chemical oceanographer. I work at the National Oceanographic Data Center of NOAA.
Kim Cobb. I'm a paleoclimatologist from Georgia Tech.
I'm Johanna Beer. I'm a physical oceanographer and I'm working at the Max Planck Institute for Meteorology in Hamburg, Germany.
I'm Don Ludwig. My training is in mathematics, but I've worked with ecologists, and here I'm trying to pretend to be an economist. We'll see.
Being an economist is like being a house painter.
I'm David Budesco. I'm from the Department of Psychology at the University of Illinois, and my work is in individual judgment and decision-making under uncertainty.
Richard Peltier from the Department of
Physics at the University of Toronto. I'm interested in fluid mechanics, climate dynamics, and related things.
I'm Michael Fellingshaw. I work at the Hadley Centre as a climate modeler. I was trained as a crystal oceanographer.
Now perhaps the most important thing.
I'm Sue Bookout, and I work with John Katzenberger. I'm the Director of Operations for Aspen Global Change Institute, and I have a degree in Natural Resources from Cornell University.
Great, well thank you. I'm sure you all know we're here to meet on a topic of abrupt climate change. And I'm a little concerned. I promised a couple of people with whom I had conversations about the meeting that we wouldn't follow the plot in Michael Crichton's book and actually arrange for dangerous climate events to occur simultaneously with the beginning of the meeting. There is, of course, a hurricane that's coming ashore on the Gulf Coast as we speak, and the organizers of the meeting had nothing to do with arranging for that hurricane.
There's a forest fire just south of us as well.
Ah, okay. We didn't do that either. Well, there are, as you see in the agenda, a series of talks. We would hope that people would talk for 30 minutes or so. There are discussants for the talks. We would hope that the discussants would hold their remarks to 5 minutes. That probably means 5 to 10. But what we would really like to be able to do is generate an environment within which there's a good deal of discussion. There's a lot of free time. There aren't any breakout groups formally organized, but there's a lot of time to spend hiking or wandering around Aspen or doing the field trip or whatever, and we hope that the cross-fertilization will continue during those particular points in time. Inasmuch as this is an interdisciplinary group and a lot of people speak a lot of different languages, not just German and English, but physics and oceanography and economics and things like that, it strikes us that perhaps the presenters of the papers would be willing to accept clarifying questions during the presentation, but perhaps we should leave substantive questions to the discussion period. And there will be some flexibility in the schedule, so if discussions continue on beyond the time frame, we may have to cut off to stay on the agenda for that particular point in time, but maybe we can fit it back in later or encourage people to communicate electronically or in their walks and things like that. Klaus and I will be trying to pay close attention and take careful notes and try to prepare in anticipation of the ultimate discussion on Friday morning, a document that would, one, indicate what we think we heard and what we think might be some take-home messages from this group under the tent. The anticipation is that collectively we would be writing a paper for some journal or other. And that we would be able to provide perhaps an annotated outline or a list of the points that we think we heard and are important. We will also be leading the discussion in deference to the penultimate and ultimate paragraphs of that paper, as well as to the funding agencies, what we think we've learned about where the gaps are and where future research should be concentrated and where it would pay off the most in terms of furthering our understanding. And those would be the sort of things that, as we prepare, I'll say, a list of questions to think about as you wander around on Thursday afternoon, in anticipation of the discussion on Friday morning, that you could jot down some ideas and bring that to bear. The hope is that all of this discussion will allow us quickly to get to the point. John mentioned the Energy Modeling Forum. This is a group that meets in Snowmass. Last year was its 10th year. And it's an interdisciplinary group, but it's gotten to the point where people are comfortable making mistakes in front of each other and having really open discussions without really concerns of making a mistake or looking foolish or whatever. Something comes to mind that looks like it's relevant, you bring it up and it becomes part of the discussion. So hopefully we'll be able to get to that point relatively soon. It brings us to perhaps what some of you might look to as a sticky issue. There are some science writer types in the room. Susan and Dick, Andy Revkin may be, I don't see Andy, but he should be here. Yeah. Bill Blakemore of ABC News will be showing up Tuesday afternoon and be here on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. And I guess the simple way of suggesting what the rules are is everything is off the record unless you go and tell them it's not, and have conversations with them as you see fit. But in terms of what people are looking for. I haven't chatted much with Dick or Andy or Susan, but I have chatted a good deal with Bill. What I promised him was an insight into how science happens and how scientists interact and how interdisciplinary groups gain some insight into what the other folks are doing. So hopefully that will clarify that and make people comfortable. Okay. Boy, the organizers are doing a great job. We're 15 minutes ahead of schedule. If you look at your schedule of events, you'll see that Michael Schlesinger was supposed to give the keynote talk for the first group of the first session, and Michael is not here. And we do not have an Elvis mock-up to put up to indicate his presence anyway. But Klaus has graciously agreed to fill in and provide an introductory background, contextual discussion of what we're about. Klaus, thank you.